What's going on, everyone? Camille here, back for another preview for Week 7 MLS action. Third week since this show's inception, and we've had two really positive weeks so far, especially on the best bets. And yeah, we're just trying to keep that going. It's another loaded slate, 14 matches, so all but one team, that being Orlando City, playing this week, and a lot of more intriguing matchups. And yeah, I'm just ready to get into it. To recap Week 6, we went 9-4 with one push overall, with that push coming as one of our best bets. That being Atlanta versus Chicago. We had the over 3 on that, and Fire couldn't really contribute, even though they've been pretty good on the road so far in terms of scoring. Atlanta just dominated that game, and we got a really, really late goal from Atlanta to push that 3-0 being that final scoreline. But other best bets, we went 3-0. First one being Charlotte Cincy under 2.5. That was a pretty straightforward game. Cincy equalized late to make it 1-1, but relatively sweat free until like those final stages. And then we had Kansas City draw no bet, which, as far as it goes for a road performance in MLS, a relatively straightforward and sweat free win there, 3-1 for KC. Insigne just looked really, Toronto looked really lackluster without Insigne, and their strikers are just not cutting it so far. And then our third best bet being Nashville and the Crew. We had both teams scoring over 2.5. That hit by halftime. Nashville really came through for us, bounced back from that horrendous performance against LAFC, and the game ended up being 2-2. Really entertaining from a neutral perspective. But yeah, so really looking to keep this going. More good picks to come, hopefully. And yeah, just ready to get into Week 7. First game on the schedule here between the Crew and DC United, and I'm taking DC on the plus half or double chance, whatever you want to call it. And this price is like way too much for me. Like, it should not be plus, in my opinion. I don't understand why Crew's getting the juice they are here. I understand they are easily the best team in MLS right now, coming off the championship and all that. They dominate games, but the pricing here doesn't really make sense to me, and there's not a lot of spots I'm going to fade the Crew this season, but this is just one of them where I kind of have to take this risk because they're coming off a game against Tigres. They're going to have to travel after this game. They're going to have like 2 days rest. They're going to have to travel down to Mexico in a two-leg tie. They're still in 1-1 in that first game earlier this week. So they're still going to be going for that. I expect a lot of rotation. And there's a lot of doubts with Cucho, their striker, there's something going on internally that reporters haven't been able to figure out. Something to do with him coming off in that Charlotte game, and Wilfred Nancy's kind of suspended him in a sense. He hasn't played the last 2 matches since then, and I don't think he's going to be available for this match either. Maybe he will be for the second leg against Tigres because that's way more important, but he obviously benched him in the first leg, and I don't see him inserting him back here. And Christian Ramirez has been injured for a couple games now. I don't expect him to return, and this is just a spot where Champions Cup, I like fading teams in these spots. It has an effect, and the Crew are on this deeper run into this bracket. And DC, on the other hand, a formidable team so far this year, still leading in XG. They're undefeated on the road. They held Cincy to 0-0, even though Cincy has had their own creation problems. So honestly, this is a really good situation here for DC to at least get a draw, where they've obviously had experience already, pulling off results like this. It's another beast with the Crew here, but this is just too much juice on the Crew ML, and DC can definitely score with the Crew. I mean, did we really expect something different here out of me? I'm taking another under for Cincy games. Both these teams are top 5 in expected goals allowed, so they're allowing the least to their opponents. We know that about both of these teams. I mean, Red Bulls, that's their whole identity. Cincy, that's been their identity. 3 games at home, they still haven't allowed a goal, and they're still struggling with chance creation themselves. They're pulling out these gritty results. Very good out of them. but both these teams also have bad blood from last year's playoffs. I think they're both going to be up for this game, and it's going to be really contested and gritty. But yeah, I just don't see anything changing about the trends we're seeing between these two teams. Red Bulls are playing team stuff on the road as well. And there's also the issue with Forsberg. He picked up some sort of injury, I guess, over the break. Didn't play last week, when he was supposed to return. So that's also a bit of a doubt. But even if he plays, there's just too much quality on both sides of the ball defending to believe that anything's going to change and either of these teams is going to let up a couple goals. I just want to preface this game by saying that these are two teams that I really just can't seem to get an understanding of. Like Miami in a terrible rut of form, can't beat NYCFC last week, go up and somehow allow them to get back into that game, can't pile it on them. So credit to NYCFC, on the road. But without Messi, this team is just completely different, and there's not a lot of depth. The defenders are old, which should lead to a lot of overs, even if Messi is out, because they have quality up front. And that's kind of where I'm headed with this one, because I don't even know if Messi's going to play. He didn't even play earlier this week against Monterrey in their first leg, so clearly it's a big deal. I think they're trying to probably get him fit for that second leg instead of risking him here, or at least starting him here. And Rapids, really impressive win against LAFC out of nowhere. Just another confusing team for me. Only got 1.5 xG, got 3 goals. There were some banger goals in that match, which you can't really account for xG and all that. Mahalovic got a free kick. They win it late. But yeah, Miami's still in the top 3 for xG allowed. So they're giving up a lot. And Rapids actually surprisingly in that, at least middle of the pack towards the upper half. So I just think Miami can concede to literally anyone in the league, as we've seen now. Giving up, I think, 4, I think. At least 3 to Montreal and lost. And now, they let NYCFC score when they hadn't scored on the road at all. So I'm just going to go with both teams to score over 2.5 here. I'm not going to take a side. I just think Miami, when they're approaching these games a certain way, and they're actually going forward instead of how they did, strategically game plan for Monterrey and take less risks with their defending and their line shapes, then games like this have the potential to go over. And I think Rapids are kind of a coin flip as well, but I think they could score 1 here, or maybe even 2. Who knows? Miami's just not in a good form, and they're probably also going to be looking ahead to the second leg against Monterrey after this game. We get El Trafico in Week 7, the most entertaining MLS matchup by far every year. We get it a couple times a year. This is the first time, and it literally always delivers. There's no reason to not take, the over here. Both teams score over 2.5, or over 3, over 3.5. It's impossible to not or to fade it. But I'm going with bread and butter here, LA Galaxy team total, and I know this is an insane price to make as one of my best bets, but please, I just don't get it. They're gonna keep giving me this price, and I'm gonna keep attacking it. LAFC is not the greatest defensively either. They just gave up 3 to Rapids out of nowhere. At home, they're obviously a different beast than they are at home here. 5-0 to Nashville and all that, but it's not like there's something magically defensively. And Galaxy can pour it on anyone. They just had a 1-0 win over Sounders at home. That was a huge downpour, rain. They still won. We had Galaxy ML last week. They came through. That's why I didn't take the team total, because it could get a little sketchy there, and they ended up pulling out their first clean sheet. And I kind of like Galaxy double chance here as well. That's plus money. I wouldn't mind that, but I'm just going to go with the team total here, because this game always delivers, and it's usually a banger. And if the over is going to hit, then I think both are going to have to score 2. I don't see one team really blowing out the other, I guess, even though I favor the Galaxy more front to end. And yeah, it's just impossible to not take a line like this. No one's going to be injured for the Galaxy. They're on normal rest. They're staying home practically because it's still LA. And yeah, Joveljic didn't even. I think he played like 20 minutes last week, because Vanny benched him. So it's gonna be full strength lineup. It should just be another classic, El Trafico. So yeah, best bet number one. Let's keep this going. Revolution versus Charlotte here. I'm taking the over 2.5. Charlotte's been top 6 in XG so far. Another really impressive performance against Cincinnati, 1-1 draw at home, obviously, but they've scored in 2 out of their 3 road games. And honestly, it's just fade the Revs season until proven otherwise, because they're looking dreadful. Like, I don't want to take both to score because this could easily get out of hand for the Revs, as it just did midweek against Club America at home, 4-0. It just looked like a literal practice session for Club America. And yeah, I mean, you could add both teams to score because I think the home bump's going to give the Revs, a lot here again. But once again, it's just still a good price for the natural over to me. And I think with that scoreline going for the second leg to Club America next week, I just don't think they're really even going to care or try. I don't expect a lot of rotation, I guess. I think they should be focusing on this match more and getting their first win. They're the only team in the East without a win. And they're getting a lot of juice here, which is telling me that, it's kind of lining up with my thought process of where their focus is going to be at. But obviously they have a lot of defensive issues, so it's not going to be a straightforward win. They're clearly in a spiral. I feel like maybe the team's given up on Porter, but we'll see where it heads. He's definitely on the hottest seat so far. But Charlotte also getting Copetti back. He featured for about 20-30 minutes. And Bronico, who hasn't played before last game. So he's back. That's 2 really notable starters in for a team that's been really impressive so far. So I could see both netting here. Revs might be extra motivated. We'll see. But I trust both to contribute here. I'm just going to take the natural over, though. Atlanta on the road against NYCFC. This is a laughable price to me. I don't understand. Like, I don't know what the books are thinking pricing NYCFC this much with this much juice. Like, plus a half, so double chance, minus 125. I'm taking that all day. This is my second best bet of the show. And yeah, Atlanta's gonna be full strength. NYCFC really solid point against Miami. A very depleted Miami. In hindsight, 2020, but whatever. Like, I'll give them credit for that. But this is one of the top teams in the East going on the road. They've looked really impressive so far. I think a lot of what's factoring into this price is Atlanta's 2 road games so far. They haven't scored in either of them. One was against the Crew on opening day. The second was against Toronto the other week when about half their best starters were out, or all their best starters, basically. Half of their starting lineup was out. And you can't really assess that naturally, right? So I don't mind the Toronto bet here either for plus money. Like, I don't see a reason why we should be overreacting to a point against Inter Miami. And it's just a natural home advantage, right, for any MLS team, but it shouldn't be juiced like this, or a minus, unless we get a random like DNP for some of these Atlanta players, which I just don't expect to see. I mean, we saw a lot last week that I'm not even gonna go over, but for across the league, but the results were still there. But regardless, I think this is just a huge mistake by the books. If it bites me, it comes back to bite me, so be it. But this is just a complete different level of class here. Cushing's still on the hot seat. I just don't see how Atlanta doesn't get out of here with a point at least. The Canadian Classic here between Whitecaps and Toronto FC, and I'm going to be going with a back-to-back actually. Best bet number 3 of the show. I'm going with Whitecaps -1 plus 110. So basically meaning Whitecaps have to win by 2 for this to hit, but if they only just win by 1, then you push, you get your money back. So we get that push protection here. I think the ML is really steep, just naturally. So I'm gonna go with this option instead. And yeah, I think this is just complete, two different levels of class here. Whitecaps have been really, really solid to start, minus that one little hiccup against RSL at home. But besides that, they're second in the Western standings, 3-1-1. And Toronto, very solid start to the year, obviously very solid defensively. But they just got embarrassed at home against KC. And without Insigne and without a clear number 9 option, they've been cycling between them every game. I just don't think Toronto has what it takes to break down Whitecaps. And even though Whitecaps have looked pretty confusing in terms of holding on to leads, they just had a 2-0 lead against Timbers, choked it away, and then also choked that one away to RSL the week prior. Even though they have that kind of issue lingering, I don't think they struggle with that against this type of team, this type of makeup here. They're obviously coming off the win against Timbers. They found that late winner after choking that lead away. But this core is staying intact. I really like their pieces. I think they're figuring out the best lineup as they go and working everyone together between White and God and Kralak and Picot. And yeah, I don't expect Insigne to be back for this game. And this should just be a pretty straightforward home win. I think the price is really correct here. And I'm just going to go with this plus money here instead of taking the ML. I really like the price here, and this could get out of hand for Toronto for a rivalry match that both should be up for. But I think the home team is really should be expected to win and will win. Austin against San Jose in what is 2 bottom feeders in the West so far. 2 really disappointing teams, but kind of to be expected, honestly. Quakes, just another unbelievable meltdown. Judd gets a red card early. They try and hang on to a 1 lead, which could have, they could have extended before that red card, but they try to hold on. Then they collapse late. Houston comes back at home to win 2-1, and then they get another red card. Both those red cards coming to Judd and Ewell. So just really, it's very hard to trust this team, but they're usually good for goals in some sense, right? In most years and to start this year. And on the other end, Austin, with Driussi back, they look really, really better in terms of their, he's just leading the way. He's putting everything together, putting those crosses in and such. And he just got his first full 90 in, and he got a really nice assist to get them over that hump and beat Dallas in their rivalry game. So Austin has scored 2+ in every home game so far. San Jose is always good to lead goals, even though they're underperforming their expected goals allowed. So they should be, they're kind of been, I guess, unlucky, or they're just really, really bad. They just have a bad tendency, especially on the road, to leak a lot of goals. So as much as I kind of want to take Austin here, they're also still top 3 worst in expected goals allowed. And it just could be a shootout here for a pretty, even price in terms of, a split on the over-under. And I'm just going to expect more goals here for 2 teams that really want to kind of probably get another step on each other and kind of climb a little bit more in the West. My Fire taking on the Dynamo here at home, and I'm going for the under 2.5 here. The Fire have had a lot of bangers to start the year. They just got pumped by Atlanta 3-0 on the road, which was kind of to be expected. Was hoping they'd be a little more competitive in that game, but it just got out of hand quickly after that late first half goal. But anyways, Dynamo second worst in expected goals, but also best number 1 in expected goals allowed. So against the Fire side that's struggling for chance creation, especially with Shaqiri kind of back in the fold, which I've already stated my dislike for his starting role, but whatever. They're struggling to find chances and putting crosses in for Kuipers. So honestly, I think, once again, I don't want to be like a Dynamo hater, but all the numbers are pointing towards this regression. They're really doing really well with what they've got and how many pieces they have missing so far. But I think last week's performance was more about the Earthquakes just collapsing and giving Houston so much time to find their way back into that match, more than, Houston really being a really creative team and having those top options up front. So I think the Fire can definitely keep Houston at bay here, and Houston on the road is definitely going to be a little more, bunker down a little bit. So I just think this price is really speaking to me, and it should be probably a 1-1 draw in my mind. Minnesota taking on RSL here. I'm expecting a lot of goals in this one. Taking the over 3 for plus money, so we're getting that push protection. And Minnesota's top 5 worst in expected goals allowed so far, and RSL, on the other hand, top 10 in expected goals allowed. Both really impressive teams to start the year, 3rd and 4th in the West, respectively. And yeah, both these teams should be at full strength. I don't see any issues here. Minnesota will want to respond coming back home after getting absolutely bossed around at the Union this past weekend. And RSL looking as impressive as ever. They just came off a 3-1 win against St. Louis. Cucho's really at the center of everything they're doing, and they're really clicking right now. All the younger pieces are also going to be healthy for this one. And Minnesota, they had Reynoso back for a little bit, but now there's issues with his green card, so he's still in Argentina. I highly doubt he's going to have that figured out and be back for this match. So as much as it might be a problem implementing him back into this system, since he is their best player, and getting him adjusted to what this new coach wants to do, they don't really have to worry about that yet, and they can stick to what they've been doing, and it's really been working. So I expect both to score here easily. And I see probably a 2-2, but we get that push protection at the 3, and it's really good value for me. Nashville hosting the Union here, which is going to be my 4th and final best bet for the show. I'm going with Union draw no bet at even odds. And listen, as much as we wanted to harp on the Union this whole season for their surprising defensive woes, they're still undefeated in MLS. Besides the early Champions Cup slip-ups, they're undefeated. They're looking at full health now after the international break. They just dominated Minnesota 2-0 at home. And I just really like this attack more than Nashville's, who, Nashville, to their credit, are undefeated at home. But still, without Zimmerman, I want to attack this defense as much as possible. We had that both teams score over 2.5 last week, and I'm just going to take the Union here, who are in top 3rd for expected goals, while Nashville is 2nd worst in terms of giving up expected goals. And especially on the road, the Union have been really impressive in their output. And for two teams that have the lowest possession stats in the league and want to counter a lot, I just prefer the Union's attack and their ability to link up, because Nashville will try, I think, to possess the ball more, because that's what their coach wants to do now, and switch their identity up, even though they haven't been able to do it. So if Union just gives up the ball to them, and if Nashville wants to try and play that way, then I think that definitely benefits the Union on the road against the Nashville side, who's definitely been suspect. Even though they played the Crew that were a little shorthanded without Cucho, still gave up 2 goals to them, as dominant as they are. But I'm going to be taking this price here for an undefeated team, a team that has a lot of veteran players who I expected to right the ship as the season went on, and I think they're in a really good spot to get their 3rd win in a row here. St. Louis hosting Dallas here, and I'm going to be cautiously taking St. Louis on the money line here. But I think this is just the opponent they need after getting completely outclassed against RSL the week prior. Dallas in dreadful form, 4 losses in a row. The worst team in terms of chance creation and expected goals. And both these teams are kind of riddled with injuries, but more so Dallas. Pomacall's out for the year. That's kind of been known, though. He's already, that was confirmed. He hadn't played a game before that announcement, but Ferreira randomly popped up on the injury report last week. His status is in question this week again. And, even if he plays, I don't think he's going to be at 100%, obviously. And it just leaves more question marks for this team that if everyone is not on the field, these players up top, especially with Musa, are not getting that chemistry. And going once again, continuing this road trip in one of the best home atmospheres in MLS. I just think City, even though they have a couple guys out, they just got Parker back, one of their starting center backs. They're obviously leaking goals, but this is a team you really want to try and tighten up against and get a clean sheet on. And their forward options up front are definitely have more chemistry, and can get the job done. Squeak out a win here for this price against a really, really bad Dallas side that is probably going to be at the bottom of the West for a long time. Sounders hosting Montreal, and this is more of a situational play. I'm taking the Sounders team total instead of their money line. It's a little bit less pricey, and I think they're gonna probably put 2 past Montreal here if they get the win anyways. So Sounders obviously haven't looked as good defensively as we've known them to be, but they get this huge home bump here, and I don't think Montreal is a bad team at all. They've pulled out really good results for the situation they're in, and that situation is this continued road trip, and it's their 6th road game in a row to start the year. The legs are definitely under more duress, and it's not like this road trip has been all in one area or not as taking a toll on them. They just went from Chicago. They had that week off, but then they went to DC, all the way to East Coast, and now from DC they're flying all the way to the West Coast to Seattle. I don't mind the over here as well, but Seattle, I think they showed a lot of good signs in that Galaxy win. Even though they got shut out, they had really good chances compared to what we've been seeing so far. And if there's ever a situation, in a team that you want to kind of just put the pedal to the metal at the start to finish, it's this team who is definitely going to be looking forward to their next game back at home and getting a little bit more adjusted into the normal type of schedule. But this is going to be another one that's definitely too much for Montreal, and if they manage to score here, I wouldn't be surprised, but Sounders could definitely pile it on here in this certain situation. Last match of the weekend here, the lone Sunday match, Kansas City hosting the Timbers. I'm taking Kansas City on the money line. This is a really good price for a team that, besides the Galaxy kind of meltdown, I guess, they've been undefeated. They're coming off a really good road win, especially with missing some key pieces up front like Polito, Russell, etc. Dominated Toronto 3-1. They're coming back home here in a place that's really rough for opposing teams to play in. And I think they're going to get those pieces back. I think those are just some kind of random DNPs that shouldn't really be lingering. And I like their defensive foundation much more than the Timbers, who are top third worst and expected goals allowed. And it's just the kind of side that, as I kind of expected, is regressing to the mean after a really good start. They have a lot of star players. They just added Rodriguez from Club America, but still, I think they still need more time to mesh. This could go over as well. I like the over, but I'm trusting KC here at home. I think Timbers are good for goals in general, but just in general, I never liked Phil Neville to begin with as, coming into this role. I think a lot of these signs are starting to show. 3 losses in a row now, and they have to travel again to KC, a place where they usually haven't excelled at. But I think it'll take a little more time for the Timbers to mesh here, and KC will keep their good defensive foundation going and kind of take this one early in what should be a pretty exciting game, to say the least. But KC just edges this one out. I like the price here. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoy this content, please make sure to like and subscribe, and just leave your comments on what you think is going to happen this weekend and your thoughts on the games. And just to recap, for the best bets, we have Galaxy team total over 1.5. We got Atlanta on the double chance or +0.5. We have Whitecaps -1, meaning they have to win by 2, but if they only win by 1, it pushes. And the last one, fourth one, being Philly Union, draw no bet. So once again, wishing you the best of luck for all your bets, and just hope you enjoy these games. And I'll see you next week for week 8.